They took everything from him: his name, his freedom, his right to walk away. He was bought and sold like furniture. He slept where they told him to sleep. He ate what they permitted him to eat. He existed, if you can even call it that, entirely at the mercy of another man's mood. And yet, this man, this slave, this piece of property in the eyes of Roman law, became one of the most quoted philosophers in human history. Emperors read his words. Generals carried his teachings into battle. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man on earth, sat down in private and wrote notes to himself based on what this former slave had figured out. His name was Epictetus. And the first thing you need to understand about him is this: he did not teach philosophy from a comfortable chair in a clean room. He taught it from the wreckage of a life that had been stripped to almost nothing. Every single lesson he left behind was not theoretical. It was earned. It was pulled out of real suffering, real limitation, real loss. That is why it still hits differently 2,000 years later. Most of what you have been taught about freedom is wrong, not slightly off, fundamentally, structurally wrong. You were taught that freedom means having more options, more money, more time, more control over your circumstances. You were taught that the free person is the one who can go anywhere, buy anything, answer to no one. The whole architecture of modern life is built on this definition. Work harder, earn more, acquire more, and eventually, you will be free. Epictetus looked at that definition and called it what it actually is: a trap. Not because ambition is wrong, not because building a better life is wrong, but because a freedom that depends entirely on external conditions is not freedom at all. It is a lease, and every lease has a landlord. And the landlord, circumstances, other people, the economy, your health, the 1,000 things outside your control that can shift without warning. The landlord can cancel the lease at any time. Epictetus knew this not as a philosophical abstraction. He knew it as lived experience. He had watched free men with money, status, influence, collapse completely when their circumstances changed. He had watched men who owned property and servants and entire households fall apart the moment the emperor turned against them, the moment the business collapsed, the moment the thing they had built their identity around was taken away. And he had watched them from his position as a slave and understood something they could not see from where they were standing. Their freedom was always borrowed, and they never knew it until it was gone. Now here is the part that most people skip over when they hear the story of Epictetus, and this is important, so stay with this for a moment. His owner was a man named Epictetus, and Epictetus, by some historical accounts, once twisted the leg of Epictetus, deliberately, as a demonstration of power, of ownership. Epictetus reportedly looked at him and said, calmly, without rage, without panic, "You are going to break it." Epictetus twisted harder. The leg broke, and Epictetus said, "Did I not tell you that you would break it?" That response is not a story about physical toughness. It is not a story about suppressing emotion or pretending pain does not exist. It is something far more significant than either of those things. It is a demonstration of a mind that had already drawn a line, a clear, specific, non-negotiable line between what belongs to the outside world and what belongs to him. The leg, outside. The body, outside. The circumstances of his captivity, outside. His response to all of it, his. Completely, entirely, permanently his. No one could reach across that line without his permission. And here is what that means for you, living in your apartment, your house, your daily life with its pressures and its disappointments and its specific version of confinement. The thing that is making you feel trapped right now is almost certainly not what you think it is. You think the trap is the job you cannot leave yet, the relationship that is complicated, the financial situation that has not turned around. the city you are stuck in, the circumstances that are not cooperating with the version of your life you had planned. Those things are real. The difficulty is real. But the trap, the actual trap, is the belief that your internal state is at the mercy of all of those external things. That is the cage Epictetus is talking about, not the one made of circumstances, the one made of the assumption that circumstances get to determine how free you are on the inside. He spent his entire life teaching one thing in 7 different directions. That cage is optional, not easy to leave, not something that happens because you read the right words or felt the right feeling during a video. Optional in the specific sense that there is a practice, a daily, unglamorous, nobody-watching practice that loosens its bars one decision at a time. The next 6 lessons are that practice. But before you can receive them, you need to sit with this first one long enough for it to land somewhere real. Epictetus was owned, and he was freer than almost every person around him. What does that tell you about where freedom actually lives? Nobody is coming to unlock the door. That is the thing Epictetus understood before he understood anything else. There was no rescue coming, no shift in political winds that was going to arrive in time to change his situation, no appeal to fairness that was going to move the needle, because fairness was not a currency that Roman slave markets accepted. He had 2 choices: wait for external conditions to change and build his entire inner life on top of that waiting, or figure out what was actually his, what no ownership document, no master, no emperor's decree could ever legally or physically touch, and build everything on top of that instead. He chose the second one, and that choice produced 7 lessons that have outlasted every empire, every institution, every system of power that existed when he was alive. Here is where they begin. Lesson 1. The dichotomy that changes everything. Epictetus did not start with motivation. He did not start with mindset. He started with a line. A specific, clear, almost brutally simple line drawn down the middle of human experience. On one side of the line, everything that is yours, your judgments, your intentions, your desires, and whether you act on them, your response to what happens, the standard you hold yourself to in private when nobody is watching, and lowering it would cost you nothing visible. On the other side, everything that is not yours, your body, your reputation, your property, other people's opinions of you, the outcome of situations you are already inside, the timing of results, the behavior of everyone around you. He called this the dichotomy of control, and he was not gentle about it. He said, and this is worth reading slowly, some things are in our control and others not. Things in our control are opinion, pursuit, desire, aversion. Things not in our control are body, reputation, command, and in one word, whatever are not our own actions. Now here is why most people hear this and nod, and then go back to spending 80% of their mental energy on the wrong side of the line. Because the wrong side feels more urgent. The opinion someone formed about you feels more pressing than your own judgment of yourself. The outcome of the project feels more important than the quality of the effort you are putting into it right now. The way the situation is developing feels like it demands your attention more than the decision directly in front of you. The wrong side feels like it matters more in the moment. And Epictetus is telling you from direct personal experience of having almost nothing on the right side of that line that this feeling is the specific illusion that makes people unfree, not the circumstances. The misdirection of attention towards circumstances you cannot govern while the territory you actually own goes neglected. Try this today, not as a philosophical exercise, as a practical one. Write 2 columns. Left column. Everything you spent mental energy on yesterday that you had no real control over. Right column. Everything within your actual control that did not get your full attention because the left column was consuming it. Look at the trade you made. That trade, made daily without awareness, is the invisible cage. The awareness of the trade is the first key. Lesson 2. Desire is not the problem. Attachment is. Epictetus wanted things. He was human. He had preferences about how his days went, about the quality of his thinking, about the conversations he was part of. He was not a hollow vessel floating above human experience with no stake in outcomes. But he had drawn a distinction that most people never draw. The distinction between preferring something and requiring it. This sounds subtle. It is not subtle. It is the difference between a life that can function under almost any condition and a life that quietly falls apart the moment the preferred conditions are not met. Think about what you are currently requiring in order to feel okay. Not preferring, requiring the specific outcome from the specific situation, the validation from the specific person, the circumstance to resolve in the specific direction, the plan to go the way it was supposed to go. Every one of those requirements is a chain, not a dramatic chain, not one you can see, a quiet one that you only feel when the requirement is not met. And suddenly, the irritation arrives, the anxiety arrives, the low-grade sense that something is wrong that will not leave until the thing you required shows up or the situation resolves. Epictetus called this seeking things to go well from the outside, and he said it was the root of nearly every form of human suffering he had ever observed. Not pain. Pain is unavoidable, and Epictetus never pretended otherwise. He had a broken leg to prove he understood what pain was. Suffering, the extended inner disturbance that follows an event long after the event itself has passed. That, he said, is almost always a requirement that was not met. The practice he offered is not detachment in the cold, nothing matters sense that people misread Stoicism to mean. It is this: hold preferences lightly, pursue outcomes with full effort, but locate your stability somewhere that outcomes cannot reach. Want the good thing, work for the good thing, and when the good thing does not arrive on schedule or in the form you expected, and sometimes it will not, do not let its absence have authority over the ground you stand on. That ground is yours. The outcome never was. This is not resignation. This is the most aggressive form of inner freedom available to a human being. Because the person who is not requiring the outcome to be a specific thing is completely free to give everything to the pursuit, without the weight of the requirement making the pursuit fragile. Full effort, released attachment to outcome. That combination, that specific combination, is what Epictetus lived from. In chains, with a broken leg, with nothing by the world's measure. And he was freer than the men who owned him, because they required things. He preferred things. And the distance between those two words is the distance between a cage and an open road. Here is what makes this lesson genuinely difficult and worth sitting with. You are not going to stop wanting things. That is not the goal, and it was never Epictetus's goal. The goal is to notice, specifically and honestly, which of your current wants have quietly become requirements. Which preferences have hardened into demands that you are placing on reality without fully realizing you are placing them. That noticing, that specific, honest inventory is where the lesson actually begins. Not in the theory, in the looking. There is a version of you that nobody sees. Not the version that shows up when people are watching, not the one that performs well under observation, that holds the standard when the standard is being measured, that makes the right choice when the right choice has an audience. The version nobody sees. The one that exists in the quiet moments, the private decisions, the thoughts you have when you are alone at 2 a.m. and the day has been long and the easier thing is right there and the harder thing is sitting in the corner, waiting to see what you will do with it. Epictetus was obsessed with that version, not with reputation, not with how a person appeared to others, with who a person actually was when the appearance did not matter. Because that version, the private one, the unobserved one, that is the real person. Everything else is performance. And performance, however convincing, is not character. And character, real character, built in the invisible moments, is the only thing that holds when the visible ones fall apart. The next 3 lessons live in that territory. Lesson 3. You are not your circumstances. You are your responses. Here is a question Epictetus asked that has no comfortable answer. If everything external were stripped away, the job, the reputation, the relationships, the financial situation, the physical appearance, the achievements, what would remain? Most people cannot answer that question cleanly, not because they are shallow, because they have never been forced to find out, because the external scaffolding has always been there, holding up the identity, and the identity has never had to stand on its own without it. Epictetus had everything stripped away, not metaphorically, literally. And what he discovered, what the stripping revealed, was that beneath the circumstances, beneath the labels and the social position, and the accumulated external identity, there was something that could not be confiscated: the capacity to choose his response. That capacity, small, unglamorous, available in every moment regardless of what the moment contained, was, he argued, the entirety of what a human being actually is, not what happened to you, what you did with what happened to you. This is not a motivational reframe. This is a direct philosophical claim about the nature of human identity, and it has consequences that go further than most people are comfortable following. It means that the story you are currently telling about why you are the way you are, the childhood, the specific hard thing that happened, the person who did the thing, the circumstances that set the conditions, those things explain the difficulty. They do not determine the response. The response is always yours, always. Even when it does not feel like it, even when the emotion is overwhelming and the circumstances are genuinely unfair and the rational case for why you had no choice is airtight, the response was yours. Epictetus did not say this to be harsh. He said it because the alternative, the belief that your responses are determined by your circumstances, is the most complete form of self-imprisonment available. Because if your circumstances determine your responses, then you need your circumstances to change before you can change. And circumstances are on the wrong side of the line. So you wait. And while you wait, the version of you that could have been built through different responses does not get built. And the circumstances, indifferent to your waiting, do whatever they were going to do regardless. Your response is the only leverage you have ever had. Use it like it matters, because it is the only thing that actually does. Lesson 4. The opinion that is destroying you is one you chose to believe. Epictetus said something that sounds almost offensive the first time you hear it. He said that people are not disturbed by events, they are disturbed by their opinions about events. Sit with that for a moment before you push back on it. The person who criticized you in that meeting, what disturbed you was not the words in the air. It was the story your mind built around the words. The interpretation. The conclusion you drew about what it meant about you, about how others now saw you, about what it signaled for your future in that environment. The words were outside. The disturbance was inside. And the disturbance was built from an opinion, your opinion, about what the event meant. Now here is where it gets uncomfortable. If the disturbance is built from an opinion, and opinions can be examined and revised, then the disturbance is not mandatory, not easy to dissolve, not something that disappears because you understand this intellectually, but not mandatory, not locked in, not something happening to you from outside that you have no relationship with. Something you are, at some level, participating in constructing. Epictetus was not dismissing pain. He was not suggesting that hard things should not feel hard. He was pointing at something specific, the layer of interpretation that sits between the event and the response, the story that the mind adds automatically without being asked, that takes a difficult moment and converts it into an identity conclusion, a catastrophe, a permanent verdict on your worth or your future. That layer, that automatic interpretive layer, is the target, not the feelings underneath it, not the valid difficulty of the circumstance, the story that gets added on top of both. The practice is not positive thinking, it is honest examination. When the disturbance arrives, and it will arrive today, probably before this video ends, pause long enough to ask one question. What opinion am I holding that is making this as large as it currently feels? Not to dismiss the difficulty, to find the specific story that is amplifying it beyond what the raw facts support. That question, asked consistently across ordinary moments, does something that no amount of external validation ever could. It returns authorship of your inner life to you. And authorship, the actual lived experience of being the one who decides what things mean, is closer to freedom than anything the external world has ever offered. Lesson 5. Rehearse the hard things before they arrive. Most people treat difficulty as an interruption, something that breaks into the normal flow of life uninvited, demands to be dealt with, and then hopefully leaves so the normal flow can resume. Epictetus treated difficulty as a curriculum, not something to be avoided or minimized or gotten through as quickly as possible, something to be prepared for deliberately in advance, with the specific intention of being less surprised and more capable when it arrived. He practiced what the Stoics called negative visualization, the deliberate, calm contemplation of what could go wrong, what could be lost, what difficulty might arrive, and in what form. Not as pessimism, not as anxiety rehearsal, as preparation. There is a specific kind of shock that hits a person who has never seriously considered that the thing they are depending on might not be there one day. The relationship, the health, the financial stability, the person they love. When those things are simply assumed, when their presence is so expected that their potential absence has never been seriously considered, their loss does not just hurt, it destabilizes completely. Because the mind was never asked to prepare, it was only allowed to assume. Epictetus, who had lost everything that could be lost and had survived it, understood that the preparation did not make the loss easier in a trivial sense. It made it survivable in a real one. Because the mind that has walked toward the difficult thing in a controlled environment, has looked at it, named it, asked what it would require, that mind is not ambushed when the difficult thing arrives. It was expecting something hard, maybe not this exact hard, but hard. And a mind that was expecting hard does not shatter under hard. It activates the preparation it already built. Try this once this week, not daily yet, once. Sit with one thing you are currently depending on for your stability, your sense of okayness, your sense that things are fine, and spend 5 quiet minutes asking honestly, what would I need to find inside myself if this changed tomorrow? Not to catastrophize, not to spiral, to prepare. The answer you find in those 5 minutes is not a prediction of the future. It is a deposit into the account that gets drawn on when difficulty arrives. And difficulty, as Epictetus knew better than almost anyone who ever lived, always arrives. The only question is what it finds when it does. You are closer to the end of this than you think. Not the video, something else. The version of you that has been running on borrowed stability, the one whose okayness depends on things staying a certain way, on people behaving a certain way, on circumstances cooperating with the plan you made for them. That version has a shelf life. And the shelf life is not determined by when things get easier. It is determined by when you decide to build something that does not need things to be easy in order to hold. Epictetus spent a lifetime pointing at that decision. Not the dramatic version of it, not the single moment of transformation where everything changes at once. The quiet, daily version. The one that happens in the unremarkable private moments that nobody documents and nobody applauds. The last 2 lessons live there, in the quiet, in the unglamorous, in the place where the real building happens while everything visible stays ordinary. Lesson 6. The way you talk to yourself is the architecture of your reality. Epictetus noticed something about the people around him that most of them never noticed about themselves. Their suffering was almost always narrated. Not just felt, narrated. Running commentary. An internal voice that took the raw, difficult thing and immediately began constructing a story around it. A story with a villain and a victim. A story with conclusions about what the event proved about the person's worth, their future, their standing in the world. And the story, not the event, was what they were actually living inside. He said, and this is the part that lands differently once you have watched your own mind do it, that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Think about the last time something genuinely difficult happened to you. Not the moment of impact, the days after it. How much of what you experienced in those days was the direct experience of the difficult thing, and how much was the story your mind was telling about the difficult thing? The replaying, the imagining of how others were perceiving it, the projecting forward into the worst version of what it might mean. The internal argument with the person who caused it, rehearsed at 11 p.m. when sleep should have been available, but the narrative needed one more run-through. The event itself had a size. The story made it fill every available room. Epictetus was not saying, stop feeling. He was pointing at the specific practice of examining what the mind adds on top of feeling. The layer of interpretation that sits between what happened and what you are now carrying. Because what you carry is not the event. It is the meaning you assigned to the event. And meaning, this is the uncomfortable truth, is not given to you by events. It is chosen. Not always consciously, not always easily revised, but chosen. The practice here is not forced positivity. Forced positivity is another story, just a more comfortable one. The practice is examination, honest, specific, unhurried examination of the narrative running in the background. Ask, what am I adding to this that the raw facts do not actually contain? What conclusion did I draw that the evidence does not fully support? What did I decide this means about me that I accepted without questioning? Every honest answer to those questions does something that no external resolution of the situation could do. It returns the authorship of your inner experience to the only person who should have ever held it. You, not the event, not the person who caused it, not the circumstance that produced it. You decide what this means. You decide how long it stays at the size it currently is. You decide whether the narrative running in your head is serving the person you are trying to build, or slowly, quietly dismantling them. That decision is always available, in every moment, regardless of what the moment contains. Epictetus made that decision from inside slavery, made it with a broken leg, made it with less external freedom than almost any person reading these words has ever experienced. And the quality of his inner life, by every account of everyone who sat with him, who listened to him, who wrote down what he said, was extraordinary. Not despite his circumstances, completely independent of them. That independence is available to you, not as a gift, as a practice. Start with the story running right now, the one underneath the surface of this moment. Find it. Look at it honestly. Ask what it is adding that the facts alone do not require. That honest look, just the look, is the beginning of something that changes the entire architecture of how you experience your own life. Lesson 7. Freedom is not found. It is built, one ordinary moment at a time. Here is the lesson Epictetus saved for last. Not because it is the most complicated, because it is the one that requires everything else to already be in place before it lands with its full weight. Freedom is not a destination. This is where the modern definition fails completely, and Epictetus's definition begins. The modern version promises you that freedom is somewhere ahead, that if you hit the number, reach the position, achieve the outcome, resolve the situation, then you will arrive at freedom. Then the feeling of constraint will lift. Then the sense of being trapped by your own life will finally ease. Epictetus watched that promise destroy people, not because ambition is wrong, not because building toward something is wrong, but because the person who is waiting to be free until the external conditions align is practicing daily, through every act of waiting, the belief that their freedom depends on something outside themselves. And that practice, repeated across years, builds a person who genuinely cannot access freedom from the inside because they have never tried. They have only ever looked for it out there. The freedom Epictetus is describing is not the absence of constraint. It is a quality of relationship with the present moment, with what is actually here, right now, in this specific, unremarkable Tuesday of a life that does not require the Tuesday to be extraordinary in order to be fully inhabited. It is built through the dichotomy practiced daily, the honest redirecting of attention from what cannot be governed to what can, through the desire held as a preference rather than gripped as a requirement, through the response chosen rather than defaulted to, through the story examined rather than accepted, through the hard thing rehearsed rather than avoided until it arrives uninvited and overwhelming. Each one of those practices is a small act of construction, not dramatic, not visible from outside, not the kind of thing that produces a feeling of sudden transformation, but accumulated across ordinary days, across the unremarkable private moments where the choice was available and the easy thing was right there and you chose differently. They build something that the hard thing, when it arrives, has to reckon with. Something that other people can feel in a room without being able to name. Something that does not depend on anything outside itself to remain standing. Epictetus called it the only thing that is truly ours. And he was right in a way that goes deeper than philosophy. He was right in the way that a person who has had everything taken away and discovered what remained is right. Not theoretically, experientially, from the inside of the exact situation that tests the claim. He had nothing, and he had everything that could not be taken. Now here is the turn, the part of this that most people miss when they hear the story of Epictetus and feel inspired and then go back to their life unchanged. The inspiration is not the lesson. The inspiration is the invitation to the lesson. The lesson is what happens after the video ends, in the next moment of friction, the next impulse that arrives, demanding immediate satisfaction, the next difficult conversation that could be deferred again, the next private moment where the standard you set for yourself is available to be quietly lowered and nobody would know. Those moments are the curriculum, not the philosophy, not the quotes, not even the story of a man who was born into chains and died freer than the emperors who inherited entire kingdoms. The moments after this. That is where Epictetus actually lived, not in the teaching, in the Tuesday, in the ordinary, unremarkable, grinding daily life, where the choice between who you are becoming and who is easier to remain was always available and was always his to make. And now it is yours. You were not born a slave. You do not have a master with a legal document claiming ownership over your body. But you may be living as though you do. As though the opinion of that person gets to determine your internal state. As though the outcome of that situation gets to determine your sense of worth. As though the circumstances of your current chapter get to determine the ceiling of who you are capable of becoming. Epictetus, from inside actual chains, is telling you something. The chains you are living in are optional. Not easy to remove, not something that dissolves because you heard the right words at the right moment. Optional. One practiced moment at a time. Starting now. Epictetus died with almost nothing. No estate, no title, no accumulation of wealth that a biographer could list as evidence of a life well built. By every external measure that the world uses to calculate the worth of a human life, he finished near zero. And yet, the emperor who ruled the most powerful empire on earth kept his teachings on his nightstand. Think about that for a moment. Not as a feel-good fact, as a question worth sitting with seriously. What did a former slave have that Marcus Aurelius, a man who commanded armies, administered continents, controlled more resources than most modern nations possess, what did that slave have that an emperor needed to read before sleeping? The answer is not wisdom in the abstract. Wisdom is everywhere. Libraries are full of it. The internet is drowning in it. Wisdom alone does not explain why those specific words from that specific man carried that specific weight. What Epictetus had was proof, not argument, not theory, not the elegant reasoning of a man who had thought carefully about difficult things from inside a comfortable life. Proof. The proof that the thing he was describing, the internal freedom, the unshakable ground, the quality of a mind that has genuinely located its stability somewhere that circumstances cannot reach, was not a philosophical position. It was a livable reality. He had lived it, under the worst conditions available, and it had held. That is what Marcus Aurelius was reading. Not inspiration, verification. The testimony of a man who had tested the claim against everything the world could throw at it, and come back with a report that said, "It holds. It actually holds." And now you are sitting here, in your life, with your specific version of constraint, and the same report is available to you, not as comfort, as a challenge. Because here is the honest thing that this story demands. Most people hear the life of Epictetus and feel something genuine in the moment, a kind of stirring, a recognition that something true is being pointed at, a brief, real sense that the way they have been living, outsourcing their stability to circumstances, requiring outcomes before allowing themselves to feel okay, carrying the weight of every opinion that landed on them, that way of living is not the only way available. And then the video ends, and the phone buzzes, and the day resumes, and the next opinion lands, and the next outcome disappoints. And the next impulse arrives, demanding immediate satisfaction. And the brief, real sense of something different possible quietly fades back into the default. And 6 months pass, and the same patterns are running. The same invisible chains are in the same places. The same borrowed stability is still borrowed from the same circumstances that were never reliable enough to borrow from. Epictetus watched this happen. He taught for decades. He saw students arrive genuinely moved, genuinely ready, genuinely convinced that this time something was going to change. He said, and this is the line that should land somewhere uncomfortable, "It is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows." The person who leaves this video feeling like they understood it has learned nothing yet. The person who leaves this video with one specific, small, unglamorous practice to apply in the next ordinary moment, that person has taken the first real step, not the feeling, the practice. So here is what the practice actually looks like, not in theory, in the specific texture of a real day. You wake up tomorrow morning, and before the phone is in your hand, before the notifications, before the news, before the inbox full of other people's urgencies, you sit for 60 seconds and you draw the line, left side. Everything today that is not yours to control, the outcome of the meeting, what that person thinks about what you said last week, whether the situation resolves the way you need it to, the 1,000 things outside the line, right side. Everything today that is actually yours, your attention, your standard, your response to whatever arrives, the quality of effort you bring to the work in front of you, the way you treat the people in your actual presence, the decision in each specific moment where it is available to be the person you are building rather than the person it is easier to remain. 60 seconds. Not a meditation retreat, not a complete life overhaul, not the dramatic transformation that the inspiration of a moment promises and the reality of an ordinary life cannot sustain. 60 seconds of drawing the line before the day begins. And then, this is the part that determines everything, honoring the line when the day tests it. When the opinion lands, noticing which side of the line it is on before deciding how much of yourself to give it. When the impulse arrives, inserting the pause, just the pause, before following it. When the obstacle appears, asking what it is building rather than immediately calculating how to get around it. When the story starts running in the background, finding the specific opinion inside the story and asking honestly whether the facts actually require that conclusion. None of this is heroic. That is the point. Epictetus did not build his freedom through heroic acts. He built it through the consistent, unremarkable daily practice of choosing the response available to him in each moment, even when the moment was painful, even when the response cost something real, even when the easier thing was right there and choosing differently had no immediate visible reward. That is the curriculum, the actual one, not the philosophy, the Tuesday. And here is what accumulates on the other side of that practice, the thing that is genuinely difficult to describe to someone who has not yet experienced it, but that every person who is committed to it recognizes immediately. A kind of quiet, not the quiet of nothing happening, the quiet of a mind that has stopped fighting battles it was never going to win, that has pulled its energy back from the uncontrollable and put it where it actually belongs, that has stopped requiring the external world to arrange itself a certain way before allowing itself to be okay. That quiet is not emptiness. It is the specific feeling of a foundation that holds. You stop bracing for the opinion because the opinion stopped having authority over the ground you stand on. You stop managing outcomes with the desperate energy of someone whose stability depends on them. You stop performing the version of yourself that requires external validation to feel real. You just stand, steady in the way that Epictetus was steady, not above difficulty, not untouched by pain, not floating in some philosophical dimension where the hard things do not feel hard. Steady in the specific sense of a person whose ground is built from the inside and therefore does not shift when the outside does. That steadiness is available to you, not as a gift, not as a result of understanding this intellectually, as the direct consequence of the practice, applied in the next moment, and the one after, and the one after that, across the unremarkable private architecture of an ordinary life. Epictetus was born with nothing, was given nothing, had everything taken that could be taken, and he built the one thing that could not be confiscated. The question this video ends with is not about him. You have the same capacity he had. Not the same circumstances, not the same suffering, not the same external conditions that produced the specific crucible his philosophy was forged inside. The same capacity. The line is available to you. The pause is available. The return to the present is available. The examination of the story is available. The preference held instead of the requirement gripped is available. All of it, right now, in the next ordinary moment that presents itself. The man who was born a slave died free, not because the world changed, because he built something the world could not touch. The only question left, the one that this entire story was always building toward, is whether you are going to keep waiting for your circumstances to change before you start building, or whether today, this specific unremarkable Tuesday of a life, is the day the building actually begins. Epictetus would not tell you which one to choose. He understood that the choice being yours was the whole point. It always was. If something in this video landed somewhere real, share it with someone who needs to hear it. The world has enough noise. What it is short on is people who have actually done the work. If you are one of them, or you are becoming one, Stoic origin is where that work continues. Every video on this channel exists for one reason: to give you something you can actually use in the next ordinary moment of your life. Subscribe if that is the kind of content worth having in your feed. See you in the next one.